Well, the New Zealand building industry is in flux. Some construction companies have gone under. We've seen loss-making tenders, legal action against directors, and now an agreement between the government and construction aiming to address these issues and, in fact, bring efficiency to the industries. BIM is a modelling technique aimed at not only streamlining major projects, but also reducing costs and identifying efficiencies. asBUILT is the largest independent BIM consultancy in Australasia. Its managing director, David Burton, says BIM is a pathway to higher performance. In fact, he calls it the single source of truth. And he joins me now. Well, a combination of the latest innovations in immerse group virtual reality, 3D modelling and digital simulation. Now, if that's the answer, what was the question?
I'm confused.
What is BIM? I know it's a lot of things to a lot of people, but can you put it in English?
BIM, for me, is really a process. It's a way of driving collaboration into the design phase, through construction and into FM. I think if you look back a relatively short period in time, we were designing in 2D. We then moved to some 3D design elements. Now the way we design and build are very complicated information models. So for me, BIM is a process to bring all of the stakeholders together in one environment. And by doing that, we are creating a platform and a way of working and bringing visibility of certain processes.
It's interesting because I went and had a look at what you did, and you have a sort of a surround. I felt like I was at the top of the Sky Tower when I was just in a virtual reality sitting on, without a headset on, I might add. So it was full immersion almost.
Yeah, and I guess what we do, predominantly asBUILT, myself and my business partner and a lot of our staff, we're from a construction delivery background. So I guess over the years, and when I started asBUILT, when I got back to New Zealand after 8 years overseas, I decided to do an MBA. My MBA thesis I did on the declining performance of design in construction. While I was doing that in my research, I came across the 3D laser scanning technology. And I thought, if we can use that technology to create a more certain design environment, we're going to end up with better design deliverables and ultimately better construction outcomes. That was the thinking 8 years ago. It's been a hard road because obviously we're a very stubborn industry. People don't like collaborating and working together, and we are quite technophobic, which is a little bit concerning because I guess as an industry we haven't increased our productivity over a number of years.
Well, you also said, if I can quote you, that we were stuck in the old ways and habits. Can you give me an example of that? Or was it the people running the companies?
It's not so much the people. I think it's just the industry, the way clients procure the work, the drivers that are in place around what's best practice procurement. It's a really interesting industry, and I guess I don't know any other industry where we as construction professionals do what we do, but we have to be able to communicate to the people digging the holes, tying the steel, to the CEO of the company that we're building for. So it's a very diverse skill set.
But it's also a platform where everyone's on the same page, as opposed to having 30 sets of plans with 30 different people looking at different plans, thinking different things, isn't it? It brings it all together.
That's what we do. And ultimately now what we do, we try and set the digital strategy for a design team. So if we can set up that robust structure for the architect, the engineers to work together, we can then start bringing that collaborative, more certain design environment that we can also, we've been developing software tools internally for the last 3 years to interrogate that space. So upon doing these design drops, we bring visibility to that design process. So we can interrogate some Power BI dashboards to see design status, what our level of clashes are. We can start interrogating some of our seismic
So it puts everyone on the same page at the same time.
Yes.
And I presume it brings in a lot of savings. I mean, obviously you get paid for what you do, but the savings would be immense. I mean, you're working for Fletcher's, for example, on the event centre in Auckland. There must be huge savings by doing what you're doing and offering the service that you're doing.
Yes, there is savings because you are streamlining. Those savings are quite hard to establish and define because we don't build the exact buildings twice with what we're doing. But also some of the structures and buildings that we're now constructing are very, very complicated. It's also quite nice to get some of the old boys site foremen coming up saying, hey, we couldn't have done this without you guys. It's a really nice message.
Did you find any hurdles in the business? I mean, how did you sell this idea to the big boys, if you like? Because you're right, it was a closed-off industry.
I guess selling the idea was very difficult at the start, which probably led to the business idea changing. And I guess instead of supplying information just to the consultant team, that wasn't really driving change. Where we've had the best results and where we've got an educated client willing to listen and try something different. And yeah, it's great when that happens.
Are you finding that this is the way people are going now? They're almost to the point where they have to get on board or they're going to be left behind?
With what we've been doing over the last 8 years, there's definitely been the early adopters, and that was quite hard for them, and also we had to drop down through the supply chain and perform a whole lot of different functions. That was 8 years ago. Now I think that the competence has matured. A lot of our country's main contractors are building this digital capability inside their business, and also the level of subcontractor engagement is increasing as well. I know with some of the subbies that we've been working with, we're creating a more certain construction environment. And I guess if we're going to change construction, we need to have a look at other industries like manufacturing. How have they digitised and how have they become more efficient and increase their productivity?
Well, you've increased a lot of productivity because you've gone from how many staff to how many now? When you started, how many? Just you?
Yeah, day one was myself and business partner, and now I think we're 46, 47. Main office in Auckland. We've recently opened an office in Sydney, and as of 2 weeks ago, Melbourne also.
What was the opportunity in Australia? Is there any competition over there, or what do you offer in that industry over there that they haven't seen?
I think Australia are at a similar state to us. What I liked for our business in opening a Sydney office was the opportunity to diversify and not only rely on the New Zealand economy. Growing the business to circa 50 people now, there are other risks, and it's quite a big business to feed.
Is it scary to go that high?
Is it scary? No, I really love what we're doing, and we are driving change, and I think 8 years ago when we started doing this, a lot of the other big consultants were kind of watching. We worked with a number of them to get them on this digital journey, so I think we've really led that, and to sit back and see the change that our little business has done with some of these big consulting firms that have been around over 100 years, that's quite a nice milestone and a nice feeling. But yeah, it's a really challenging industry.
Well, we know because a lot of them have been struggling. At the end of the day too, though, you also say you want a kinder impact on our planet. How do you go about doing that?
Good question, and that's one we struggled with internally a little bit. Being from a construction background and very technical, those fluffy marketing messages, we don't put a lot of focus in, and we'd spent probably a year trying to develop our brand story. After maybe 5 years doing what we're doing, didn't really do any marketing. We kind of grew the business on doing a good job and doing it well. And then we got to this level and thought, well, we've got circa 30 staff now. What's our messaging? How are we keeping everybody on the same page? So we're working with a couple of ladies from Auckland to help us with getting a marketing message and also a brand story about what we were about. And it was really neat. They came in and talked to us about who we are, what we believe in, what are our drivers. They also interviewed a number of our clients. And yeah, it's very topical at the moment, especially with kids. I mean, kids come home and some of the projects that they're talking about. And I think there is a real, I don't know if it's worry yet, but there is a real concern about our planet. And I think even our young staff, there is that concern. And ultimately this process, I guess the efficiency piece, if we can be more efficient with our time, but also with the materials that we use, that creates a massive impact on our environment.
What's your biggest learning on this 8-year journey?
Be ready to change, I guess, your business idea. And I think from where we set out at day one, our business idea wasn't to become the information manager. But I think where we've landed up, we've created an independent digital business where I guess we advise our clients on digital strategy and also interrogate their designs. We help their supply chain to become more efficient. But we do that by not having another focus. We're not a large consulting engineer. We don't have an architectural practice. We purely focus on the information and bringing visibility of that information throughout the whole process. The other thing that we're seeing is a lot of our clients are now starting to rely on the information model to operate and manage their facilities more efficiently. And that definitely wasn't part of the thinking 8 years ago. The last couple of years, or 3 years now, we've been building our own software. Having gone through quantity surveying school and dragged up in construction, I never thought I'd be building software. But I think we've got a real practical focus because of a lot of our practical skills, how we create these solutions.
So that IP, how important is that? Because in terms of your expansion, so you're into Australia now, you're going to go somewhere else, you go to the US, are you looking Asia, where are you looking?
So the last year, I guess we've been thinking, what's our next phase of growth? How do we really make some big impact? The thing we saw 3-4 years ago is a lot of our clients are spending hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars creating digital assets. Ultimately, they're not looked after, they're not kept up to date, so we saw that as an opportunity. And then also, I guess a little company, asBUILT, how do we start? What's our data strategy? Because we're now looking after very important data for our clients. It's commercially sensitive. We started a discussion with Microsoft about a year ago, and they've really helped us on our software journey. So we're now building a couple of software platforms that we think is going to help the industry communicate and be more connected, because I think one of the biggest problems is that we're such a fragmented industry. There's so many small little companies making up our industry, and that makes it even more challenging.
Well, I certainly look forward to following the journey. Appreciate you talking to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.